From the Oklahoman newsroom, it's time for an OSU update. I'm Jenny Carlson here in studio. It's Bedlam week, and that means a lot on the line at Oklahoma State. And it starts with the defense this year. Scott Wright joins us on the phone to talk about a guy that could be central to the Cowboys defense. Scott, we've seen this defense continue to evolve. We'll talk about it overall in a second. But Amen Ogbongbemiga at the linebacker position is a guy who continues to assert himself, continues to make big plays. We saw it at West Virginia. He's got an interesting story. We'll talk about that in a second too. But what about his role in this defense? What have you been impressed by with him this season?
Well, just his consistency has been one of the most impressive things, because he was a guy who had played sparingly as a backup. They had Justin Phillips ahead of him, who was kind of the rock of this defense for a couple of years. And for Amen to come in and play the way that he has at a consistent level has been really impressive, because Jim Knowles identified him. He knew after his first year that Justin Phillips was going to be leaving, and he was going to need somebody in that middle linebacker spot to be that rock. And Knowles identified Amen at that time, and really started pushing him to be that guy, and it's paid off.
You know, his story, Scott, it's pretty interesting, because there's a lot of talk about the Canadian Cowboy, that being Chuba Hubbard. Everybody knows his Canadian roots. But Amen Ogbongbemiga, also Canadian, but sort of a different twist on his story. How did he get to become Canadian, get to start playing football in Canada?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because he was actually born in Nigeria. He's the youngest of three siblings. His family worked really hard. They had the goal of coming to North America, and Houston was actually the place they first identified. So when he was 3 years old, the family moved to Houston, and he lived there for a while till he was about 12. And at that point, they felt that Canada offered some things that were attractive to them, and so they moved up to Calgary and lived there. So he had gotten into football a little bit before that, while he was in Houston, and his older brother actually was a really good football player. Began his college career at the University of Houston, and then when the family moved to Canada, he transferred to the University of Calgary as well. Played up there. Actually played a couple of years in the CFL, and Amen followed in his footsteps, and is got his opportunity to go play college football. So it's a pretty interesting journey. He's got dual citizenship, Nigeria and Canada, which is a pretty fascinating thing. And Amen hopes to go back there sometime soon. It's not an easy trip, but he does have a lot of relatives still there, including his grandparents. So he really wants to get the chance to go back sometime soon.
Well, whether he goes back as a winner of the 2019 Bedlam game or not could depend, Scott, a lot on what he and this Cowboy defense do. Mike Gundy said earlier this week that Oklahoma's offense is a wishbone team in the spread. He said obviously it's not exactly the old days of wishbone offense, of triple option offense, but it's a different challenge than a lot of Big 12 teams will present with the run game. How does Ogbongbemiga and the linebackers, how do they fit into what Oklahoma State needs to do defensively on Saturday?
Well, yeah, him in particular, but along with Malcolm Rodriguez, are going to be key in containing Jalen Hurts when he takes off and runs. And that was the biggest point of Mike Gundy's discussion about this being a triple option type offense, is that Hurts runs the ball more than triple option quarterbacks did. So that was more than guys like Jamel Holloway and these guys who were super talented athletes back in that wishbone offense. So the middle linebacker, and that being Amen, is incredibly important in sort of shadowing what Hurts does and following him wherever he goes. And then other guys like Malcolm Rodriguez or Colby Harvell Peel that come in and up in run support, they've got to help out as well. But Amen Ogbongbemiga is going to be right at the center of all of it all day long on Saturday because that's going to be one of his primary assignments is keeping up with where Jalen Hurts is going.
All right, it's going to be interesting. The chess match will get underway at 7 o'clock on Saturday night up in Stillwater. If you're not headed up there, game is on Fox. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at Oklahoman.com and every day in the Oklahoman.